Have you ever seen an elderly loved one gradually and quietly begin to change, eating less, speaking less, preferring to sit alone? And only months later did you realize this wasn't just normal aging, but a sign that something deeper was approaching? In the final 6 months of life, many seniors start to show very subtle, very quiet signs that those around them often overlook. But behind that quietness is the body's final message, silently preparing for the greatest transition of one's lifetime. And here's the surprising part. These signs aren't just physical changes. They can be emotional, spiritual, or something else entirely, something that feels sacred. Some are obvious. Some are as vague as a passing mist. Some catch us off guard, and some, if noticed in time, can completely change how we walk alongside those we love during their final months. In today's video, I'll walk with you through 7 signs that often appear in older adults during the last 6 months of life. Signs that may seem simple, but carry powerful meaning. This video isn't meant to scare you. It's a gift of awareness, to help you prepare mentally, receive the moment peacefully, and love wisely at the right time, in the right way. Whether you're caring for a parent, a spouse, or quietly sensing these changes within yourself, this might be the most important video you ever watch. And I hope you'll stay with me until the end, because the final sign I'll share is one that very few families ever notice. Yet it's one of the clearest messages the body gives when it's ready to say goodbye. If you feel this is an important topic, please hit like and subscribe, so that heartfelt messages like this can reach more people who need them. And I have a question for you. Have you ever witnessed a loved one show signs you didn't understand until later? Leave a comment with just one short sentence. I've seen these signs, and I will treasure every moment. Your story may be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Are you ready? Let's begin. The first sign that's easy to overlook, yet one of the clearest signals, is a shift in the person's relationship with food. As the end nears, the body begins to reject the things that once felt familiar. Foods they used to love, meals that were once daily rituals, suddenly feel foreign. You may notice your loved one eating less, leaving even small portions untouched, or quietly pushing their plate aside, even when it's a dish they once couldn't resist. This isn't just a change in taste. It's a biological signal, a way the body says, I don't need as much energy anymore. As the organs begin to slow down, the digestive system becomes more fatigued. Eating, something that once gave life, now becomes too exhausting. The urge to chew, swallow, or even smell food may disappear without warning. For family members, this can be one of the most heartbreaking changes to witness. Deep down, especially for children and grandchildren, we carry a powerful instinct to nurture our loved ones through food. When we see someone not eating, we worry. We feel helpless. We fear they're getting weaker. And we often think, what can I do to make them eat again? But in truth, this isn't giving up. It's the body choosing to rest in the gentlest way it can. Some people stop feeling hunger altogether. There's just a quiet indifference toward the full plate in front of them. Margaret, 85, had loved cooking all her life. Her baked apple pie was a family tradition every Thanksgiving. But a few months before she passed, even the smell of flour baking made her nauseous. She drank plain water, took a few sips of mild tea, and occasionally asked for an ice chip. Her daughter made all sorts of soups and soft meals. But one day Margaret looked at her and gently said, I'm not hungry anymore. I just want peace. That wasn't surrender. It was the body gently whispering, it's time to rest now. Sometimes the change comes suddenly, from full meals to just a few spoonfuls of soup. Other times it happens gradually, nibbling smaller bites, chewing more slowly, or quietly skipping dinner. Some may even say everything tastes strange now, or that nothing has flavor at all. That's not their imagination. It's the body's natural response. At this stage, counting calories no longer matters. What matters is comfort. A spoonful of soft pudding, a piece of ripe mango, or even just a warm sip of water may carry more meaning than a full meal. Because this isn't about eating to survive, it's about living fully in the moments we still have together. What truly matters isn't getting them to clean their plate. It's letting them know you're there, that you understand, and that even without words, you hear their quietest needs with your heart. One of the most noticeable changes in the final months of life, but also one of the most overlooked, is how older adults begin to sleep. But this doesn't always look like regular sleep. Instead, you may see them drifting in and out of awareness, dozing off mid-conversation, falling asleep at the breakfast table, napping deeply in the middle of the day, then waking up at midnight, confused whether it's night or day, or even unsure of where they are. These changes can quietly begin as early as 6 months before passing, especially in those with chronic illnesses or long-term health decline. But because it often just appears as sleeping more than usual, we tend to dismiss it. In truth, something far more complex is happening. As the body's systems begin to slow, the internal clock, the one that helps us stay awake during the day and sleep at night, starts to lose its rhythm. As the body nears its final phase, that clock becomes disrupted. Seniors may sleep for hours, yet wake up feeling unrefreshed. They might nap most of the day, then become strangely alert at 2 a.m. George, 81, began falling asleep after breakfast, and then during gatherings with friends. His family assumed it was simply old age catching up, but over time, his sleep grew deeper and more frequent. When he was awake, he often seemed disconnected from those around him, as if his mind hadn't fully returned. 6 months later, George passed peacefully at home, and that unusual sleep cycle had been one of the earliest signs, unnoticed by those around him. In some people, these sleep changes come with vivid dreams or unusual experiences. They might speak to deceased relatives, say they see light, music, or distant figures. These moments can worry loved ones who may feel confused or frightened. But for the person experiencing them, they're often gentle, like another world is softly calling them closer. Rather than panic or look for explanations, the best thing we can do is to understand, to know that they're drifting between wakefulness and sleep, between this world and somewhere else, isn't laziness, confusion, or giving up. It's the body's way of sending a message that they are preparing for a journey deeper, farther, and more sacred than anything they've ever known. And sometimes just sitting beside them, saying nothing at all, letting them rest, or holding their hand when they stir, becomes more meaningful than any words could ever be. There is a sign that often appears suddenly, one that makes many people believe it's a glimmer of hope. But in truth, it's a quiet signal that the body is entering its final turning point, a sudden burst of clarity or a return of energy that seems to come out of nowhere. In the medical world, this is called a rally, a brief surge of brightness. It often happens in those who have been chronically tired, withdrawn, or barely responsive. And then, all of a sudden, they become more alert, more talkative, eating again with some appetite, smiling in a way you haven't seen in weeks. In that moment, hope lights up, not just for the family, but for the person themselves too. It may genuinely feel like they're improving, and emotionally, it's incredibly warming, incredibly fragile, making everyone want to believe they're truly getting better. But medically, this short revival isn't progress. It's a shift. It happens as the body releases its final reserves of energy, or from temporary chemical changes that occur in the final stage of life. During that brief window, the mind may grow clearer, pain may ease, and for a few precious hours or maybe days, that person seems more like themselves than they've been in a long time. Helen, 82, had been sleeping nearly all day, every day, for weeks. But one afternoon, she suddenly asked for her favorite meal, laughed with her grandson, and even got out of bed and sat at the table. Her daughter rushed to call the whole family, thinking her mother was recovering. But 2 days later, the light faded. Helen returned to her quiet state, and her decline resumed, more clearly than before. That didn't mean it was time to give up. It certainly didn't mean hope was lost. But if we recognize that moment as a final window, then we can be fully present in it. Say what we've long held back, offer or receive forgiveness, or simply sit beside them in silence, doing nothing and yet offering love in its purest form. This sudden return of energy isn't recovery, but it is a gift. And when seen through the eyes of compassion, with a heart that's learned to accept, that gift can offer something sacred, a deeper meaning, for both the one leaving and the one staying behind. One of the most emotional, surprising, and difficult to explain moments in the final months of life is the sudden emergence of peace from within. Even in people who've spent years living with anxiety, regret, or restlessness, this sense of calm can arrive like a soft breeze. Someone who once obsessed over every little detail suddenly lets go. Someone who held on to old grudges now speaks gently, opens their heart, recalls old memories, and may even try to reconnect with someone from whom they'd long been estranged. This doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't require rituals or belief in anything specific. It comes as something very quiet, as if their inner soul has settled, come to terms with something, and embraced it gently. You might hear them say things that sound poetic like, "I'm ready now," or "We'll see each other again soon." They might mention loved ones who have passed as if they're standing nearby. They may say they see light or feel someone watching over them, not with fear, but with a peaceful smile that words can't fully describe. This isn't hallucination, at least not in the clinical sense. It's a real experience, documented across cultures, faiths, and languages. End-of-life nurses call it nearing death awareness, and for many it is a moment of profound grace. Lorraine, 84, had lived most of her life in a constant state of stress and control. Everything had to be perfect, tidy, and on schedule. But one afternoon after a short nap, she turned to her daughter and said, "It's okay to let things be. Everything is fine now." That evening, she asked to hear her favorite music, closed her eyes, and smiled. She didn't pass away that night, but her daughter said that moment changed everything. This kind of emotional clarity doesn't always last. It may come and go, light as a breeze. But every time it shows up, it becomes a golden opportunity for connection, for honesty, for presence rooted in love. For caregivers and family, it's an open window, a space where you can listen more, push less, and simply walk beside your loved one on their path, not just with your mind, but with your heart. There may be tears, but there is often a strange kind of relief that follows. Because in that quiet surrender, something sacred enters the room, like a farewell that needs no words. Yet somehow you understand it completely. Among the visible changes that may appear in the final months of life, there is one that's quite clear, but often misunderstood: a shift in temperature and color in the hands, feet, or legs. You may start to notice your loved one's toes becoming pale, even taking on a bluish or purplish hue. Their hands might feel ice cold, even when the room is warm. These aren't random symptoms. They're the body's quiet way of adjusting, redirecting blood and energy away from the outermost areas and toward the organs that are most essential. At first, the signs may be subtle. You might notice them wearing socks all day or wrapping themselves tightly in blankets even when it's not cold. Over time, the skin around the feet or ankles may begin to turn ashen, mottled, or faintly faded, like a painting slowly being covered in a final layer of mist. For many, this is hard to accept, especially when we're used to using touch as a way to connect and comfort. You reach for their hand and feel that coldness, like a distance quietly forming between you. Our first instinct is to hold their hand in ours, to warm it with the heat of our own palms. And that gesture is deeply meaningful. But what many don't realize is that the cause behind it isn't something we can fix. It's not poor circulation. It's not a signal to change medication. It's simply the body gathering what's left to prepare for its final journey. What's remarkable is that the person experiencing it may not notice anything at all. They rest peacefully, dozing off, or sitting quietly, unaware that their skin has grown cold or that blood is slowly retreating from their limbs. Fortunately, this stage is rarely painful. It's a soft, subtle retreat. Walter, 78, used to love sitting on his porch every morning, clutching a warm cup of coffee. But recently he stopped going outside. When his daughter asked why, he simply said, "My hands get cold too fast now." She didn't think much of it until the hospice team explained it was one of the earliest signs. And it wasn't the cold from outside, it was the cold from within. Understanding this can help loved ones shift from trying to fix things to simply offering comfort. There's no need for space heaters, no need to force sunlight, just a pair of soft socks, a light blanket, and more than anything else, a calm, steady presence that says, "I know, I'm here." These changes often arrive before any other signs become obvious. And if we're clear-eyed enough to notice them and gentle enough to accept them, we can create something truly special, a space that doesn't need to be filled, a silence that doesn't need words, a moment where presence alone becomes love. One of the clearest yet most commonly misunderstood changes in the final months of life is how older adults gradually begin to pull away from the world around them. This doesn't happen suddenly. It's not a dramatic moment. It's a very slow, very gentle shift, one that's easy to miss unless you're observing with your heart. At first, they may just stop answering the phone. Then they begin declining familiar invitations. Even conversations that once brought them joy now feel like too much. And most importantly, they're not doing this out of sadness, anger, or despair. While those emotions might exist, more often, it's because the body and mind are quietly entering a new state, one of stillness, reflection, and closure. Outside voices, even those that once brought warmth, now feel overwhelming. Loved ones may say, "He just doesn't seem interested in talking anymore." Family might notice that the person who used to be at the center of every gathering now prefers to sit quietly in the corner, or not come out at all. But don't misunderstand this. It's not a rejection of others. It's not because they've stopped loving. It's the body and mind naturally turning inward, gathering strength, softening unfinished emotions, and gently preparing to let go. Walter, 79, used to be the life of every gathering. He was always the first to pick up the phone, the last to leave the dinner table. But over time, he started skipping dinners. Then he stopped responding to emails. And eventually he told his daughter, "I just enjoy the quiet more these days." That wasn't sadness. That was peace. And just a few months later, his health declined. But because his family had recognized the signs, they were able to be with him more fully, not expecting him to entertain, not asking him to be himself again, but simply being present with him, completely in the silence. This withdrawal isn't just behavioral, it's emotional too. The person may become more introspective, less engaged with the things they once loved. Not because they've stopped caring, but because their energy is now turning inward, toward reflection, toward resolution, or simply moving with the slower rhythm of a body nearing rest. And this isn't something to fix, it's something to recognize, to honor, to meet with patience and deep respect. Because within these quiet moments, a different kind of connection can take root. Not one built on words, but on presence. A presence that's not loud, but steady, not dramatic, but deeply sincere. And then, there's another sign, not one that comes from the body or from inner emotions, but from very small, everyday actions. When an older person begins giving away the belongings they've treasured their entire life, a worn wedding ring, an old love letter, a notebook filled with sticky notes, a photo album yellowed with age. When they begin passing these things to loved ones, it may mean they're quietly preparing to say goodbye. This isn't just tidying up or organizing. It's their way of saying to the world, "I want to leave behind something that matters." This is legacy, not in the form of money, but in memories, love, and the story of a life lived. And when someone begins to ask, "Would you like to keep this?" It's not just a question, it's an invitation, a passing of the torch, a quiet sign of readiness. There was a woman named Ruth, 87, who had spent her whole life teaching literature. One day, she called her granddaughter to the table and placed a small wooden box in front of her. Inside was an old fountain pen, a birthday card from 1963, and the handwritten draft of her very first lesson plan. Ruth didn't say much. She simply smiled and said, "I want you to keep this, so you'll know that my life meant something." At first, the family thought she was just feeling nostalgic. But a few weeks later, Ruth grew weaker, and she passed away peacefully. And now that fountain pen is something her granddaughter carries with her whenever she needs strength to face the world. The act of giving away personal items, even the smallest ones, isn't a sign of giving up. It's a conscious gesture. It shows that the person is choosing to close their life story in the most beautiful way, by sharing, connecting, and leaving behind a final mark of love. If you're starting to see your loved one doing this, don't turn it away. Don't tell them to hold on to it. Listen, Ask them about the item, about the story behind it, because sometimes it's within those simple gifts that the deepest parts of their heart are being passed on to you. As we close today's video, I invite you to take a quiet moment to reflect on what you've just heard. These 7 signs, they're not just random symptoms. They are silent, dignified, and deeply human messages the body sends when it begins its journey into something new, a journey we are rarely prepared for. Some of these signs may have surprised you. Others may have touched something tender inside. But each one carries meaning, a reminder that we need to listen more closely, love more gently, and show up more fully for the moments that still remain. Maybe you recognize one of these signs in someone you love, or maybe you felt one within yourself. Whatever brought you here today, know this. Recognizing these signs is not about fear. It's not about counting down days. It's about walking together with understanding, with courage, and with love that isn't ruled by fear. You are not alone. Everyone watching this video is part of a quiet but deeply compassionate community, people who honor aging, who value life, and who want to be present when it matters most, before it's too late. And sometimes simply knowing what's really happening is enough to change how we say goodbye and how we continue to love while we still can. If this video has offered you a new perspective, please leave a comment and share. I understand these signs better now, and I will listen with my heart. That single sentence might be a seed of empathy, not just for you, but for someone else who really needs it today. If you found value in this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another step in this journey we're building together. And if you'd like to go one step further in helping spread these messages of love and awareness, please consider supporting us through the Super Thanks button. Every small gesture helps keep these meaningful stories alive. In our next video, we'll continue exploring essential and thoughtful topics around aging, from powerful life lessons to practical tips for staying healthy, independent, and fulfilled. If there's a topic you'd love us to cover, let us know in the comments. This channel exists to serve you. And remember this: you deserve to be loved, to be understood, and to live a full, meaningful life at any age. Thank you for being here. We'll see you in the next video.